Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear King, of all persons, a qualified Brahmana must be accepted as the best within this material world because such a Brahmana, by practicing austerity, Vedic studies and satisfaction, becomes the counterpart body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. From the Vedas we learn that this Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Person. Every living entity is an individual person, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the Supreme Person. A Brahmana who is well versed in Vedic knowledge and fully conversant with transcendental matters becomes a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore one should worship such a Brahmana or Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is superior to a Brahmana because whereas a Brahmana knows that he is Brahman, not matter, a Vaishnava knows that he is not only Brahman but also an eternal servant of the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, worship of a Vaishnava is superior to worship of the deity in the temple. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Shakshat Daritvena Samasta Shastrae. In all the scriptures, the spiritual master, who is the best of the Brahmanas, the best of the Vaishnavas, is considered to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This does not mean, however, that the Vaishnava thinks himself God, for this is blasphemous. Although a Brahmana or Vaishnava is worshipped as being as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such a devotee always remains a faithful servant of the Lord and never tries to enjoy the prestige that might accrue to him from being the Supreme Lord's representative. Purushesh api Rajendra supatram brahmanam vidu tapasa vijaya tushtya datte vedam haristanum. My dear King, of all persons, a qualified Brahmana must be accepted as the best within this material world because such a Brahmana, by practicing austerity, Vedic studies, and satisfaction, becomes the counterpart body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is another very important statement made by Narad Muni. And he is addressing whom? King Yudhishthira. Yeah. And this statement is glorifying Brahmanas. And there are many, many verses in the Vedas which glorify Brahmanas. And there are certain statements in Manu Samhita which are very amazing. It says that the entire world, the entire material creation exists by the mercy of Brahmanas only. Everyone is eating the food which belongs to Brahmanas. Everyone is dressing in a cloth which belongs to Brahmanas. And whatever property one is using, it all belongs to Brahmanas. And it is explained that Brahmanas, they possess the entire creation. And they represent the Supreme Lord. So very impressive statements. And on the basis of those statements, we understand that there have been a lot of troubles in India. I heard one lecture of Srila Prabhupada where he explained how the downfall of the entire Vedic culture in India was caused by some of the Brahmanas who were very proud of their position. And he explained that those who took to Islam in India, they were not outsiders. They were Indians. They were Hindus. They were worshipping Krishna or some demigods, but original Vedic worship is always worshipping the Supreme Lord with all his servants and associates. So this is what is modernly known as Hinduism. Of course, some people, they forget about the Supreme Lord and they just focus on one of the Lord's associates. And then they meditate on material gain. But nevertheless, Srila Prabhupada explained that these people who turned into Muslims later, they were Hindus. And how did they become Muslims? Because they were so heavily abused by Brahmanas. And he explained that situation was so bad that at some point Shudra was severely chastised just by if he would appear in front of Brahmana. And Shudra would have to, if he would pass by the house of a Brahmana, he would have to cry very loudly, "I am a Shudra, I'll be passing by, so please, all the Brahmanas, close your doors and windows to make sure that you don't see me." Otherwise, it was considered if a Brahmana would see a Shudra, his whole day would be spoiled and everything would be contaminated. So this was the idea. And so, because these lower classes were so heavily neglected and abused by the higher classes, who were supposed to be God's representatives, they became completely frustrated and they thought, what's the use? Let us become Muslims. At least we'll have a little bit more of a support and understanding there. So this is how it came, and this is a very important lesson to learn from history. Even though some people say that one lesson which can be learned from history is that nobody learns from history. Unfortunately. The human tendency is to repeat the same mistakes over and over again, thinking that even though it caused so much trouble in the past, but in my case, it will be different because I am different. I am better than anyone else. And we understand from Srila Prabhupada's teachings, and he is following his Guru Maharaj's teachings, and the teachings of the entire Guru Parampara, which was dead against that caste system. And we know how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur started very successfully his preaching career, that at one point early in the 19th century, his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, was organizing a public debate with caste Brahmanas, trying to prove that Vaishnava's position is superior to Brahmana's position. And so this debate was going on for a few days, and there was a very important day when Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to come and present the scriptural references proving his position, and nevertheless he got very sick And he was very disappointed, and he was nearly crying, and he was saying, what to do now? Who would oppose these people? And then his son, Bimal Prasad, who didn't had any opportunity to speak publicly, or preach publicly, at least, the conclusions of Vaishnava Siddhanta. Before that, he said, I'll take the matter. And so he quickly wrote a short essay on the position of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and he went to the meeting, and so he was representing his father there, and he started speaking. And when he started speaking, he started with those statements from Manu Samhita and many other places in Vedic literatures glorifying the position of Brahmanas. And all the caste Brahmanas present there, they became very happy. He was glorifying Brahmanas so much that even they didn't know that these verses are existing in Vedas. And so they thought, thanks God, Finally, they appreciated us. And then, after Brahmanas became, so much flattered and relaxed by all this glorification, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur started quoting other statements from the scriptures. Who is the real Brahmana? Of course, we know so many statements are there. Samodama stapa shucham kshanti rajam bevacha jnana vijnana mastikam brahma karma svabhavaja. That Brahmana means not just one who is wearing thread or took birth in a Brahmana family, but one who has Brahminical qualities, such as sama, being peaceful, yes, or equiposed, dhamma, self-controlled, tapa, austere, shocham, pure, clean, kshantir, tolerant, arjavam, honest, jnanam, the one who has knowledge, and vijnanam, one who is wise, etc. And this is just a short list. Bhagavatam gives much longer list. There are so many qualities because Krishna, he is the original source of all the wonderful qualities, and he is the Param Brahman. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, as Arjuna glorifies Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And so by associating with Krishna, who is the Supreme Brahman, one develops those qualities, those wonderful qualities. But there is one thing by which one can block himself entirely from the association with the Supreme Lord. And that is damba, pride. There is a very important list of the qualities or symptoms of real knowledge. And as we understand, Brahman is the one who's supposed to have knowledge and share the knowledge with others. And there is a very impressive list given in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text number 8, starting from text 8. And what are the first two symptoms of real knowledge are given in those verses? Amanitvam and adambitvam. What is amanitvam? What is amani? Literally, amani, it's interesting that money, in Sanskrit language anyway, means, ornament or jewels, something like that. And amani means, and why people use ornaments or jewels? Just to decorate themselves, to show that they're better than anyone else. And so amanitvam means one is free from that tendency to basically show oneself off, right? To advertise oneself. So this is amanitvam, literal meaning. And adambitvam and damba, we were saying, what is damba? It's pride. So adambitvam means one who is completely devoid of all pride. So basically speaking, one who is free from tendency to think I and mine, right? That I am something special and there is something which I can claim to be mine. So one who is free from these two tendencies, that person is considered to be truly knowledgeable. And this is where Brahman starts. Unless Brahmana realizes these 2 points, one cannot claim to be a Brahmana. And so if Brahmana, funny enough, thinks I am a Brahmana, he is not a Brahmana. Brahmanas are supposed to be gurus for the whole society, and so it's interesting that Prabhupada was saying that if Guru is thinking that I am a Guru, he is no better than a dog. Real Guru never thinks I am a Guru. Real Guru only thinks I am everyone's servant, as Prabhupada was saying. Actually, one time Prabhupada was asked, are you a Guru of all these people? Showing at his disciples, and Prabhupada said, no, I'm everyone's servant. And he was not pretending, he really felt like that, and many times he explained that. He said, I'm thinking, even though you consider myself to be your guru, and I have to play that role for you, but I think that Krishna sent all of you to me for training to be so that I would make you into gurus. So I am your servant. So this is the mentality of a real guru, one who is not really considering himself to be a guru, but one who understands that I'm just Krishna's servant, and in Krishna's service I'm playing this role for the benefit of others. And therefore we can see so many examples of real Brahmanas in Vedic scriptures and in real life also. We can see also how powerful Brahmana can become, that real Brahmana, and of course qualified Brahmana, one who surpassed the stage of just realizing Brahman, I'm not the body, but one who actually dedicated oneself to the service of the Supreme Brahman, of Krishna, how powerful that person can become. There are many, many examples. And one example which comes to mind, which is pretty powerful, is example of Chanakya Pandit. Prabhupada quoted him many times. And it is interesting that Srila Prabhupada says that he was a Brahmana, but he was a politician. And sometimes we think, wow, politician, that's something, which does not belong to Brahmana's job description. So that sounds as if it is something bad, but actually not. Chanakya Pandit entered into political field not for his self-aggrandizement or for any selfish purposes, but purely for the benefit of others. And so the story goes that he lived in the times of one very materialistic king, Nanda, not to mistake him for Nanda Maharaj, Krishna's father. So this Nanda was completely materialistic, arrogant king, And he organized a competition between Pandits who would know Vedas the best. This was the royal sport at Vedic times. Pandits would compete who would know, who would have more knowledge and more wisdom. And so when all the Pandits came, they were all renowned people, and they were occupying seats of honor, and they were competing. And one question was asked after another, and then at one question, very difficult question, nobody could give an answer. And then it was posed, and then the answer came, but not from the Pandits. It came from the crowd. Somebody else gave a response. And answer was very impressive. And even king was astonished, and he said, "Who is that wise person who gave that answer? I want to see him. Please come forward." And that was Chanakya Pandit. And he came forward, but it is described that his bodily features were not very attractive. That Brahmanas, they are not like Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas, they look very beautifully from external point of view, very stout and strong and impressive. But Brahmanas, they oftentimes influenced by Vata, and Vata makes the body not so straight, teeth might be crooked, and Brahmanas might have belly, etc. And king looked at Chanakya Pandit and started laughing. And he said, how a person like that can have so much wisdom? It must be somebody else, and you just, came forward by mistake. And so, and Chanakya Pandit got upset by the king's statement, because king was judging him externally from the bodily point of view, and this kind of discrimination was completely materialistic. And he said, "You think I'm not qualified as a Brahmana, but actually you are not qualified as a king. And if you're honest, I have to step down from your throne and give it to someone who is more qualified, who has real Kshatriya qualities, who is more advanced than you." So Brahmanas are like that. Brahmanas, it is described, they have very sharp tongue. They can say things very honestly without trying to, flatter anyone, just to wake people up from their slumber of ignorance. But they have very soft hearts. Brahmanas, they never hold anything against anyone. They're very tolerant and forgiving. They never feel bad if anyone will upset them. So Chanakya Pandit just told that for the benefit of the king, but that king became furious. And he said, "Catch this Brahmana immediately and kill him," which showed that he was really unqualified, because Brahmana is never supposed to be killed, no matter how many mistakes he does. And but Chanakya Pandit already anticipated this kind of response, and so he sneaked into the crowd and disappeared, and so they couldn't catch him. But when he went back home, he thought, this king is really bad. I have to do something to, get him out. But what he could do, he was just a Gurukul teacher in a village. He didn't have any money, any position, any power, nothing. But he was a true Brahmana, he was a qualified Brahmana, and therefore he had the power to do the necessary to accomplish the task. And so, first thing he thought, I have to get a positive alternative. I have to get someone who would replace that materialistic king and would really, benefit the citizens, the subjects. And so he looked around and he found one prince, Chandragupta. And so he gave him a very thorough training. And after training, he said, Chandragupta was asking Guru Maharaj, what can I do for you? Any Guru Dakshin? He said, yes. I trained you for purpose. I want you to dethrone Nanda, King Nanda, and take over. And Chandragupta did that. Eventually, he had to struggle for a while, but eventually he defeated Nanda, and he became the next king. And after that, of course, he was very grateful to his Guru Maharaj and Chanakya Pandit, and then he said, Guru Maharaj, please become my prime minister, become my Rajguru, my royal counselor. And Chanakya Pandit's response was very interesting. He said, I didn't put you in that position for that sake, to get position myself. I'm quite happy teaching children in Gurukul in a village, living in my little hut. But I was thinking about the benefit of the subjects of this kingdom. And so he continued. He continued living very simple life, and he never took any advantage from his endeavor. So he did that purely as a service for the Supreme Lord, because this is how it's supposed to be. Kings supposed to be qualified, otherwise they make everyone's life miserable, materially and spiritually. And he did that as the Lord's, as service for the Lord and for the benefit of the public, both material and spiritual. And he himself remained detached. So this is how Brahmanas are. They work for the benefit of everyone, paropakara, and they never claim anything for themselves. Why? Because they are purely satisfied in the Lord's service. They're just happy to serve. The only reward they want is to continue their service, because the service itself gives them so much pleasure. And therefore, we can see that there are two types of Brahmanas. One is very materialistic, as those whom we can see in India. I don't know if you ever came across this kind of people who come to you and, normally they have very thick Brahman threads. Make sure that no one would, fail to see their position. And I had one experience. One Brahmana came to me and he said, you know who I am? I said, no, sir. Who are you? And he said, I'm a Brahmana, look. And he pulled out his thread, which was that thick as a rope. He said, you see, I'm a Brahmana, so give me a donation now. So, this is one category. And of course, these guys, this is an extreme example. Other Brahmanas are a little bit, other people in that category, they are a little bit more subtle than that. But these are the people who are actually Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai, who are actually do great disservice. And these are the people whom the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is against. The whole mission of Srimad Bhagavatam is Dharma Projita Koitavatra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam. That it is meant to establish the highest truth, which can only be understood by those who are completely free from envy. And it is meant to eliminate all the false or cheating religions. And we think, maybe cheating religion is that religion or this religion. Who are our enemies? We're the best, of course. Because we are Vaishnavas, we're perfectly pure. Or even if we are not pure, we're still great. Because Bhagavad Gita says so. Apicha Suduracharo. And it's an interesting point that Sridham Prabhu was giving very wonderful class on the subject. Well, the subject pretty much continues. And he was saying so many things we should try to avoid, and so many things we should try to do in our spiritual lives. But I thought, mind is so tricky that it has tendency to apply all the negative statements on others devotees. If there are some bad examples, we may always think, oh, I know whom he is talking about. This is that devotee or this devotee. And we never think that it's about myself. And when there are some positive examples, mind's tendency is to think, oh, this is about myself. Everyone should respect devotees. Yes, I am a devotee. Everyone should respect me. Something like that. And everyone should, avoid criticizing devotees. Yes, I am not to be criticized because I am a devotee, etc., etc. So, but it is very important to understand our position, where we are, and of course, oftentimes, if we don't know what to do, sometimes mind is working in such a way that it blocks perception of our shortcomings, because we might become depressed or something. One of the senior Vaishnavas told me once that there are two catches of Maya we can fall into. And the first catch is very well known, that, oh, you are the best of all the devotees, you are the greatest. So this is the first catch. And oftentimes it leads to, because you are the best and other devotees are not as good as you, so they didn't deserve your association. That's the catch. And then, basically it's a fall down. If someone is avoiding devotee association, then one's spiritual life will not continue for very long. But the other catch, which is not so well known, is I'm so fallen that I don't deserve to be in devotee association. You see two extremes, but the same conclusion is there. And the main medicine against all the problems and the main remedy is devotee association, as Sridham Prabhu explained yesterday. Especially peer association is very important, because seniors, we're not so close to them, so they wouldn't know sometimes, or they either would not notice, or they would not even perceive our faults, because, advanced Vaishnavas are so perfect that they're like bumblebees. They don't see any faults whatsoever. So I know that for a fact, because I have good fortune of traveling with my Guru Maharaj on regular basis. And it's mind-blowing. I'm doing on a regular basis completely stupid mistakes. And I expect him to, say something about that. And most of the times he doesn't even notice that. And I'm thinking, how it's possible? But this is how he is. So, advanced Vaishnavas are like that. They don't see faults. And Prabhupada explains that. Because they're always focused on Krishna and on the positive aspects of Krishna consciousness. And so they don't have time for that. And they don't. They're very, very tolerant. I remember one time I was with my spiritual master. It's one example of many of the blunders I made. I was with my spiritual master, and it was in Russia. And so here he wanted to take a walk to the site where he was giving class, to the pandal, and he requested me to, take him there. And so we went to the crossroad, and for some reason I thought that we're going in the right direction, and I was leading the way. But we were going in a completely opposite direction. And after 15 or whatever minutes walk, finally I started doubting that we were going in the right direction, because it didn't look like that. And so I inquired from other devotees, and they said, no, if you want to go to the pandal, it's the opposite way. And I thought, oh my God, how do I tell him? But I had to tell him. So I told him, I'm very sorry, but I took you in the wrong direction. And I expected him to chastise me, but the only thing he actually said, you have difficulties with the direction? I said, yes. He said, okay. And we were late for the class, and so many devotees were waiting for us, and it was my fault. He didn't say anything like that, so, and they're very tolerant. So, associating with senior devotees, they might not tell us what's wrong with us unless we're really in a bad shape. And junior devotees, they might not have, courage, or it's not an etiquette also to tell us about what's wrong with us, right? Because they think, our duty is just to say, Jai Jai Prabhu, Haribol, Haribol. But peer devotees, those who are equal, if we're open to that feedback, they could tell us. They could give us some good advice. But of course, advanced devotees, they, for us, peer association would be like a medicine. But for advanced devotees, like Sridham Prabhu was giving an example of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he was so happy to associate with his god brothers very intimately, for a completely different reason, because these people were his, you can say, comrades, whom he was fighting shoulder to shoulder with Maya. And he was very happy to see them and associate with them. So, and they were cracking so many jokes, even though he was at the point of leaving his body. That was a very amazing experience. I had, observing him actually, I was fortunate enough, because my Guru Maharaj, he brought him to Mayapur to leave his body. And, because somehow most of the devotees know that I'm kind of his traveling assistant or something like that. So I was allowed into the room with Sridhar Maharaj as well. So I could spend time there, even though only senior Vaishnavas were allowed, only Prabhupada disciples mostly were allowed in the room. And so I was observing all these wonderful exchanges between him and his god brothers, which is very, very inspiring. Something, you can see so much love. And this is real Vaishnava dealings. And this love which senior Vaishnavas exhibit towards each other, you can see that they really love each other, truly. And this is something for us to learn from and get inspiration from, that this is how we should strive to become, to develop this kind of very loving relationship with our fellow devotees, that we would ready to do anything and everything just to make them happy, just to please them, just to serve them. That this would be the main object of our lives. Therefore, the main object of a Vaishnava, how can we understand that someone is a Vaishnava? That Vaishnava is the one who developed love of God, prema. And how do we develop love of God? Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains very clearly. Vaishnava seva paramasiddhi, prema latika mula. Serving Vaishnavas, Vaishnava seva, brings one to the level of the top perfection, which is becoming Vaishnava. And prema latika mula, that serving Vaishnavas is a root of the creeper of divine love. And so, if one has that consciousness, naturally, one will enjoy serving the devotees. And the only thing such a Vaishnava would think of, how can I serve devotees more and better and serve as many devotees as I can in this lifetime? Vaishnava is defined by a certain greed. Even though greed is not a good thing, but greed can also be used in Krishna consciousness. And Vaishnava is greedy, like people are greedy for money. And Vaishnava is greedy for two things. He is also concerned about getting spiritual wealth. And his spiritual wealth is of two parts, or two categories. One is that he's trying to collect as many holy names as he can. This is one of the Vaishnavas. He says that this verse is from Srila Rupa Goswami's Padyavali. One ancient devotee, Bhavananda, he says, in the same way as wealthy and greedy man collects, counts, and remembers his money, so let me always remember you by chanting your holy name, count the holy names I chanted, and always plan to chant more and more. So devotees want to fill their spiritual bank account with maximum number of holy names chanted. That's why Prabhupada said, never waste time. If you have time, chant Hare Krishna. And if somebody limits himself to the chanting of 16 rounds, this is very, very unfortunate example. Sincere Vaishnava would always try to chant as many holy names per day as he possibly can. And the other wealth is serving Vaishnavas. So, real Vaishnava is trying to serve as many Vaishnavas as possible. So this is his, we can say, pride and joy, real pride and joy, that I served so many Vaishnavas, and I will increase that in future even more. So, and this is this should be our aspiration. Only these two things. That should be everything we ever think in life. And of course, preaching becomes natural not only as a service to the Param Vaishnava Srila Prabhupada, but also a natural result of developing our Krishna consciousness, because we can understand that Krishna consciousness is so joyful and it is so amazing that we would naturally want to share that joy with other people. So, and if we practice seriously, if we will focus on these two things, collecting as many holy names as we can per day, per month, per year, and serving as many Vaishnavas as we can, naturally we'll have so much to share with everyone that we won't be able to, hold ourselves back from preaching. We'll always try to use all the opportunities to achieve that goal. So, Hare Krishna.